Welcome student. Today we will learn about the strings. So these are the contents of the strings: introduction to strings, declaration of the strings, initialization of the strings, reading and writings of strings, the string handling functions, and how to access the elements of a string using the pointer. These are the contents of our today lecture. Now first is definition of what is the strings. Basically, a string is a set of characters enclosed in double quotation marks is known as a string. In other words, we also can say the string is a set of the characters and there is no any data type of the strings. The string is a dependent data type. It means when we define or declare any type of a string, then we always use a character data types. So a string, due to this reason, a string is known as a dependent data type. So, the string is enclosed within double quotes and it is terminated with null characters. Whenever C compiler encounter a string's value, it automatically appends a null character at the end of the string, that is /0 is considered like as a null character. Now there is syntaxes how we declare the string. So basically the string, as we know, the string is a character data type array, and array is considered like as a one dimensional and two dimensional. So when we declare a character of one dimensional, then the syntax of declaring the one dimensional string or one dimensional character string is that first we use character data type, then we give the name of the variable of a strings, that is also known as a string name or array name, and then we put the size of the string, and this size is always put in the integer form. Next is syntax of representing two-dimensional array of characters, that is known as a two-dimensional character strings, and syntax of representing this string is also similar to the one dimension, but there we use the double subscripts, and we also can say that it similar like as a row and column pattern. So how we declare? We basically first use the character data types, then we give the string name or character name, array name, and then we use two subscripts, first for row and second for column. To represent or the declaration of one dimensional array, we can see here, as I told you, that a string or one dimensional character array is an array in which we put only one subscript. So here we declare char s is the string name, or we also can say character array name, and there are the 5 elements. So when we give this statement, then such type of the memory space is allocated in the memory, and this cell is known as the first subscript, or we also can say the index of 0, 1, 2 and so on. So that is the mechanism of declaring the one dimensional character array. Now next point is the how to initialize value to a string. So there are different way for initializing the value to a string. So what is the initialization? The initialization means when we declare an character array, at the time of declaring we give some character values, that is known as a initialization value to a string. Here we take an example. We declare a character array of having 6 elements, when we put the size of character array, then we always have to consider that size should be one more than the required elements in the strings. Here there are we observing here that there are 6 elements in character array, but we mention the size 7 because one cell or is used for denoting the termination of a string, and that is normally known as a to represent the null value. Okay. So when we declare a string, the size of array must be one more than actual number of character to be stored in our array. Next, that one extra memory block is used to store the string termination characters, that is known as a null, and it is represented as a /0. And this /0 is known as a termination of the string, and it is also known as a null value. Okay. Now, there is the initialize mechanism of two-dimensional array. So, there are two methods for initializing the two-dimensional character array. So, here we first method we use. This method is basically used to store a initialize by a row-wise manner, and next this second method is used for reading each element like as a character. In first method, basically this array contains the initialize element like as a row wise, and they simultaneously read each statement. In the second method, we use to represent each word like as a characters. Now, we use some inputs mechanism for taking an input to a strings. So, there are different way of taking input format for a string. First, we use when we want to read the string element like as a character, or in other words when we use character wise reading, then we use %c format in the scanf functions along with the for loop. So, when we want to read the elements of a strings as a character forms, then we always need to use the for loop. Without for loop, if we want to read, then we can't read these elements like as a character form. So, when we want to read or write the element of a strings with the one by one character, then we always use the %c format. Second way is that when we want to simultaneously readings the contents of a string, then we normally use %s format in the scanf function. So, using the %s scanf function, we can simultaneously or directly read the contents of a string. So, to directly read the content of a string, we basically use the format %s. The third method is that when we want to read the simultaneous readings the contents of a string without having some blank spaces, then we have to use the gets function. And above in the scanf function, when we want to read the strings having some blank spaces, then as we encounter the blank space, our string is terminated. It means when there are two strings with have a blank space like as a name of a person, basically denoted by the first name and second name. So, when we make the name of person, then we give the some space between the first and second name. If we want to read this person name using the scanf functions, then we can read only the first name, and second name is automatically terminated, because when we encounter the blank space, then such situation compiler consider that encounter their null pointer, and he consider there is the termination of the string. So when we want to read the any string having the blank space, then we generally use the gets functions, and this gets functions help to read one or more lines in a statements having a different blank spaces. Similarly, when we want to writing a string content, then there is three way of writing the content of a string or outputting the content of a string. First is that when we want to display the strings output as a character wise, then we always use %C format with the printf function along with the for loop. And when we want to simultaneously writing the contents of a string, then we basically use %S format in printf functions. So if we want to read the any name having the blank space, then we cannot read these spaces using the printf functions. So if we want to print such type of the statement, then we use the puts function, and put function is just similar to the scanf function, but their function is different. Scanf function is basically used to get the input of statements having the blank space, and puts function is used to display the output of the statements having the blank spaces. So it is just the reverse of the gets function. Now there are examples of how to write a string through the for loop. So there are examples. We declare an character array having the name S, and we initialize this character array using this statement. Programming is fun. Okay. Now our aim is to displaying the outputs of this string using the printf functions. So when we use the printf functions and we want to display the contents of a strings one by one, it means character form, then we always need to the for loop. So this problem is used to display the contents of a string using one by one, or in other words, display one by one character of a string. So here we initialize the starting index of a string 0, and we go still there we not count the null value, and we increase the values of I. So he will start from here and he will go to the end of the string, and where he encounter the null values, then he will automatically will terminated, and before the termination he will display all the elements of a strings as strings. So here he will display the all elements of a string. Now second point is how to write a string through the puts. When we want to display the contents of a string simultaneously, then we use basically puts functions. So we can take an example of here. We here define a string of character having the 100 elements, and we give the any string name, and using this get ch, the string is read, or in other words, in this statement we also can give the statements having the blank spaces. So using this, so gets function can use or read the statements having the blank spaces. Now our aim is to put this blank spaces, this statement having the blank spaces, then we basically use the puts statements or puts functions. So this program is basically used to demonstrate that how we get the statements in a string having the blank spaces and how we display the statements in a string having the blank space. Now, as you know that the strings is a collection of the characters, and we also use the string for handle the different type of the operations. So to perform the different type of the operations, a string have the different type of the functions, that is known string handling functions. So we will consider one by one the all string functions used in the C language. So first we consider strcpy function. Its full name is the string copy function. This function is basically used to make one string into copy of one string into the another string, and its syntax is that we put here two string. Here is mentioned two string, string 1 and string 2. Suppose we want to make the copy of string 2 into the string 1, then we will put string 2 second and we will make string 1 as a first. So in using this function, we make the copy of one string into the another string. Second function is strncpy, that is now string copy of n elements. Its syntax is mentioned here, that is some special type of the function in which some elements of a string 2 is copied in string 1. So its syntax are mentioned here. First we mention the string in which we want to make the copy, then we put the string second to be copied, and we make the contents number of the elements to be copied from string 2 to string 1. So that is the basically syntax of str and cpy functions. The copy is, so what we do here, we basically copy the first 5 characters of string 2 into the string 1. Now third function is known as a strlen function, and its full form is string length function. This function is basically used to calculate the length of a string, or in other words, when we give any statement in a string, then he will automatically calculate the number of element exist in this string. So basically this function return an int value, and he provides the total number of characters in the existing string. Now we consider the fourth function, that is known as strcat, and full form of this function is string concatenation. Basically this type of the functions are used to make the joining one or more string. It means if we want to join the two strings, then we use string concatenate functions, and these appends that is the syntax of this stat functions. Here we mention string 1 and here we mention string 2. The string in string 1 is that string in which we want to make the copy, and string 2 is that string that to be copied into 1. Next function is strcmp function. Its full form is the string comparison function, and this type of the function are basically used to make the calculating the length of one string with respect to the another string. Or in other words, we also can say that this type of the functions are used to compare one string with the another string. In such type of the function, if string 1 and string 2 are the same, then they return value 0, or if string 1 and 2 are not similar, then they basically provide 1. Next function is str lower functions. Basically, such type of the functions are used to provide the all contents of a string in the lower letters. Suppose that is the string 1 and we want to convert all the contents of this string character into the lower letter. In such case, we have to use the strlwr functions. This function converts all the characters of string 1 to lowercase or lower letter. Next function is the str upper functions. These functions are basically used to make the convert all the characters into the capital case or uppercase. Next function is str set function. Basically, such type of the functions are used to convert all characters of a string into the given alphabet pattern. Like as I mentioned here, string set str1b. So, in using this function, we can convert all the characters of the string 1 into the character form of b. Last and final function is strrev function. Its full form is the string reverse function. This type of the function are basically used to display a given string into the reverse order. It means it alphabetically reverse the given string. Now, there is a example and code segments to represent how the string length function do works. So, we will mention here. First, we declare a string. The name of the string is Halbert. Okay. Now, our aim is to calculate how many number of element or character are exist in this string. So, to calculate the number of the character, I have to use the string length function, and this string length function I pass the name of the character array, and name of character array is mentioned str. So, using this str, this string length function will calculate the contents of this string and he will return in the L. Because strlen function is basically always return the integer value. So, this integer value will be assigned to the L variable and I will display the L variable. So, using this L variable I can calculate the how many number of character exist in this string. All the string functions definition are basically defined in string .h header files. So we have to use, as their syntaxes are mentioned, we can't make any changes in the name of the string function because their properties and their functions are defined in the header file string.h header files. Now next, our point is accessing the element of a string using the pointer. We also can access the all elements of a string using the pointer. And what is the pointer? As we know that basically pointer is a variable that hold the address of the another variable, and basically he hold the address of the another variable. Due to this reason, using the pointer we can increase or accessing speed because the pointer is directly hold the address of required variable. Now in this program our aim is to accessing the all elements of a string. So I mentioned first here a string str of having the word hello, and I have to declare a pointer variable which data type is character. Why I mention here character data type of a pointer? The reason is that the pointer which access or link to the another variable is always should be same. So our string data type is the character, so pointer data type should be character. Now when we initialize any pointer, then after initializing after declaring I have to initialize the pointer. Otherwise by default, and if I am not providing or initializing the pointer, then he will hold the garbage value. So it is necessary when we declare the pointer we should initialize the pointer. So using this ptr pointer, I initialize here ptr to str. It means this pointer ptr will point to the our string str. And what is the str? Str is the variable of char, or in other words we can say that is the name of the character array. Basically name of the character array always denote the starting address of a string. So this str is also denote the address of the first element exist in the string. So this pointer will denote the character address of h. And now we consider here when he point here s, then using the for loop I can access all the elements of the string. So I apply here a for loop. Why I apply here for loop? Because I have to access the each element one by one, and in the character all elements are arranged in a sequential way. Due to this reason I have to use the for loop. So I initialize I equals to 1 to length of the string, and I go one by one increment, and here I put ptr plus plus when we declare any pointer, and after declaring we are using the asterisk operator before the pointer, then this pointer basically denote the value of pointed element. So in the first starting he will pointing the variable h. So asterisk of ptr will denote the h, and after getting the increment he will denote the e. Again getting the increment he will denote the first l. Again incrementing, getting the increment he will display the second l, and after again increment he will denote the element o, and after that he will encounter a null value. As he encounter the null value, our string is terminated. and when our string is terminated, control will go out. Okay. So that is the way of accessing the contents of a string using the pointers. So our today lecture is finished here. We will consider next lecture what is the structure and pointer. Thanks.